Hey everybody, welcome back. Legends and Dragons podcast, episode 41 here in Hurst, Texas, the Legend Lair. Chance Burleson, Jimmy Clowns, and special guest, the man, the myth, the legend, my dear, Mr. Jim Gill. Jim, before we go into our stories, because I know you have some pretty awesome stories, I want to read this that your son, one of my best buds, sent over to me. It is your bio a little bit. We'll get into. So, military service, United States Marine Corps, served in Vietnam from 1996 to 1966.
We weren't there till 96.
66 to 67. Purple Heart recipient, honorable discharge in 1972. Then you went to Texas Tech University, where you got your Bachelor's of Arts and doctorate as well there. Doctor what? What is it?
Was Doctor Nurse
Jurisprudence. There you go. I'm trying to, I have to zoom in with my glasses here. Then you were a county judge there in Navarro County from 79 to 82. Mayor, the city of Corsicana, from 83 to 91. Attorney at law from 74 to 1997. Then you were owner and general partner of Gill Ranch, founding director, City National Bank in Corsicana, Texas, and currently president, Gill Investment Company, Dallas, Texas. That's a pretty good bio.
I'm not allergic to your bio. I didn't want to be very clear. I've been sneezy since yesterday.
So, Jim, are you a Texas boy through and through?
I am.
Were you Corsicana area, or?
I was born in Dallas and went to Woodrow Wilson High School. Graduated in 1964.
1964. So, what when you joined the military, was that ever on your mind, or was it? Or as people used to say in the Marine Corps, that or go to jail?
Jimmy, it was never on my mind directly. After I graduated from high school, I went to Tech and was in prevent medicine, and it was an absolute disaster for me.
Why was it a disaster?
Well, I was taking 19 hours as a freshman. I was taking chemistry, biology, animal husbandry, all these things. I didn't have a car. It was just terrible. And about that same time, the war in Vietnam was heating up, and I had always remembered the Hungarian Revolution in 1956 as a child, and hearing these Hungarians talking about, if you'll send us arms, we'll do the fighting and all this. And I just decided, if I couldn't make it in college at that point, the best thing for me to do was to join the Marines.
Okay.
And about the same time, the Marine Corps hates to draft people, which is a good thing. They want people that volunteer to be there. And they typically had a 3-year enlistment, and in 1966, they came out with a 2-year enlistment. And the 2-year enlistment guaranteed two things. Number one, you were going to be a rifleman. They were not going to spend the time and money to teach you any sort of a skill like driving a truck or a tank or using artillery and stuff like this. You were going to be what we term in the Marine Corps as a grunt. And the second thing that they guaranteed was that you were going to Vietnam. And I graduated from Marine Corps Recruit Depot in San Diego, and I believe it was May of 1966. And I was in Vietnam by November, right before Thanksgiving of 1966.
So you get there, so you're a rifleman?
Yes.
So you get there in 66. I mean, in my opinion, of course, I always bust each other's chops for me being an Air Force guy. But I mean, so you knew as soon as you raised your hand, you were on your way to Vietnam.
Correct. Yes.
And so everybody that did at that time did.
Yes.
So when you got there, or what was, other than the war, what was your first thoughts when you got to Vietnam?
Well, I was attached to the 3rd Battalion, 1st Marine Regiment. We were located about 9 miles south of the city of Da Nang, and part of our, what they call TAOR, Tactical Area of Responsibility, was miles around south of Da Nang and all the way to the South China Sea. And I had been there, I think, about 4 days, the first time I ever got shot at. And I remember I can still hear the bullets going by my head, and I just kind of thought, what in the world am I doing here? And I kind of said to myself, you've got 13 months of this, but if you ever get out of here, you're going to go back to school and you're going to amount to something. You're going to do it right the second time. And from then, I was with 3-1 for about 11 months, and then was transferred to 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. I was involved in 6 or 7 search and destroy missions. I was stationed a lot of times at a very small outpost in the middle of nowhere. They were extraordinarily dangerous because there were typically only 30 or 40 or 50 guys in one of these little positions. And we would simply run patrols out of there and just kind of keep track of what was going on around us. And I was on a position like that, and there were actually about 60 of us. And I think it was January the 15th. We got hit by about 400 Viet Cong and North Vietnamese, and turned into a real mess. But some of us survived, very few of us, but some of us did.
So, Purple Heart recipient, again, thank you for your service, and thank you for being one of my heroes. Like I said, so as a Purple, what did you get the Purple Heart for?
Well, I actually had the watch that night. We had perimeter positions, probably over 40 yards or so, and I had the watch that night from 10 o'clock till midnight. It was a moonless night. It was raining, and I never saw anything. There was no activity that I could ascertain at that time. And I was relieved at midnight, and at 1:05 in the morning, the whole place just erupted in gunfire. And I was in a little bunker where we slept, and I ran out, and all I could see were BC and North Vietnamese. They were all over us. They were inside the perimeter before a shot was ever fired. I couldn't get back to the bunker on the perimeter because it had already been blown up, and my 2 squad mates that had already been killed by that time, and they were killed in the first 20 seconds of the attack. And I just started knocking these guys down. They were by that time, maybe 30 yards. And it was light as day because we had illumination rounds going off during the 30 seconds. And I just remember, shooting these guys, just chest shots, and they just dropped. And I saw one crawling up on me to my left, and I whirled over there and shot 2 rounds and missed him, and he dug behind the sand dune. So I was now out of ammunition, so I ran back in the bunker and started cramming rounds into the magazine, and the bunker blew up. And to this day, I don't know exactly what happened, but my thought process is that the officer in charge out there was a second lieutenant, and I think what he did was called in artillery on our own position. And which was, under the circumstances, is exactly what I would have done if I'd have been in his position. But apparently an artillery round from our battalion area about 3.5 miles away hit the top of the bunker that I was in, and I don't remember an explosion. I just remember a flash, and the next thing I know, I'm out. I got a concussion and blew out my eardrums. It blew out. I was bleeding out of my mouth, my ears, and I finally was able to get back to consciousness at some point. I don't know how long I was out, but there was a hole probably 4 to 5 feet in diameter blown out of the roof, and I just finished filling a magazine and got over up against one of the walls and just waited to see what was coming next. And at that point, I guess I got scared for the first time because I could hear people talking, yelling, screaming, and all that, but I couldn't tell what language they were speaking. And I didn't know I didn't know what I might be the only guy still alive at that point.
Right.
And I just laid there waiting for somebody to try to come in the door and looking through the hole in the roof. And at some point after 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes, I saw a Marine run across in front of that hole. I could see him, and I hollered at him. I said, "See if you can help get me out of here and get something else going." And he came in and helped me out. And at that point, the attack was still going on, but was less severe at that point because we killed so many of them.
Was shelling your own position?
Well, that and just gunfire.
Sure.
We ended up, when it was over with, we had killed 163 of them. But there were still some in there, and finally the ground started rumbling, and I thought, well, those are Amtrak's, the battalion, which was about 3 miles away. It turned out it was 2 of our Tiger tanks, and they were machine gunning these guys and just wreaking havoc on them. And when it was all said and done, out of that 70 guys, there were 31 wounded and 20 killed in about an hour and a half, and 160 odd BC and North Vietnamese, and that was the worst that I ever saw over there. It was just incredibly bad. I mean, they were just, bodies and dead everywhere. It was just a horrible thing, but it was just part of it. That just happened.
So I have a question now that I have my hands like you in the next 45 minutes, and I get the honor of asking things in person to somebody, and obviously my kiddos. And so my father was a Navy guy,
Right.
and he was He was in the pre-Vietnam. There wasn't even a conflict. Like, there was no official, we're over here doing anything.
Right.
But obviously, you know your history. And what my father told me is that a lot of that came through Laos and Cambodia. Is that like the Khmer Rouge and the killing fields and all of that. So that's when my dad was over there, was before that.
Right.
And he told me stories, right? They had captured him one time, and he said he still remembers floating down the river in Cambodia or Laos with the skulls on the pikes. He goes, it looked like on the lining the river that they were carrying him down. And he said that's the kind of stuff you'd see in a Conan movie. Like, you didn't see that stuff in modern time. He goes, but it was there.
Yeah.
And then fast forward to 2000, whatever we are, and the bold claims that you hear these basically soft, ungrateful, angry people talking about rising up to make change and how they're ready to fight, and they're disgruntled at the state of their own country.
Right.
And then I hear people like Jocko Willing, and I hear people like the story that you just told, and 100% of them say, you have no idea how much you don't want that. You don't want this thing you say you're so ready for.
Yeah.
You are not ready for it. You have never seen what this is like. Almost anything is better than that happening in your own neighborhood.
Well, I think that's exactly what the left thinks they're going to do, but the left has no clue what they're coming up against.
Right. And well, they don't even understand the reality of what that's like. My mom was an American history teacher. And she's like, I grew up with the knowledge from my, the people that were teaching me. We all understood that war is hell.
Yeah.
And we don't actually live in a war. Some of my friends served in the Middle East, and they've told me the same thing. Like your average person has no idea.
No.
The thing that they say they're so ready for, they're not ready for it.
No, they're not. Absolutely not.
And I hear the story that you just described, and most people that I know, myself included, I've never seen anything like that, And what it reminds me of is it reminds me of the so-called tough guys that get chest bumping. You know what I mean? Like, what you want to do, you know what I mean? I'm like, you're a puppy posturing.
Right.
You've never been in a dogfight. You say you're ready for it, when really the strongest thing would be for you to negotiate and to talk and to have a conversation. And somebody like, what do they say? That violence is what happens when communication breaks down and it's impossible. So if you can choose to communicate.
Yeah.
So after that conflict there, how long should we still in Vietnam?
Until the following December, so almost a year.
So almost a year later?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Did you guys move locations after that?
Well, we did. We went to these what I call permanent patrol bases. They were, again, might have a platoon, 30 guys, maybe some additional 106 guys or mortar section, something like that, but relatively small. And we had them all the way around the battalion area and 3 to 4 miles away. And I just kind of rotated, through the different positions. And
could they bandage you up? Yeah, I was gonna say, how long did it take for you to heal up from the busted blood, eardrums and bleeding out your mouth? Like, how long did they give you before you were back in the field?
Oh, I was back into it probably within 2 to 3 weeks.
And we complain about like, oh man, I got a sprained ankle or something.
Well, it's not quite the rainy season then, but my eardrums were shredded. They could look at it now and go, my God, what happened?
You're right.
But I got an infection, and I had to go to the battalion aid station. I guess it was every day, and get a shot of penicillin. And I got so tired of that, I told the corpsman I was about to say another word.
It's okay. You can't.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I don't know if you've seen some of our guests, but we got pretty thick skin.
Yeah.
Well, but we had that was foreman corpsman necessarily, but the guy taught me how to give myself the shot, so I just went to the battalion aid station and got the medicine.
And just get yourself a penicillin shot.
I gave myself a shot for about a week and a half.
That's all right.
Every day, and but it was interesting in that, as you said, most of these people that talk about how they're ready to fight and do all this stuff, they have no concept, and it was so different, Chance. And to me, I mean, it's been almost 60 years ago, and
There are parts of it that are like yesterday, right?
yeah, you never forget that. I mean, I was the only guy out of a gun crew that survived.
Right.
And, it was very primal at the time. And, nowadays we've got GPS and stuff. When I was in Vietnam and we were out at night, you had a compass and a map.
And the stars.
The stars. And hopefully, perhaps a little bit of moonlight.
Sure.
But it was so totally different, and it was so vicious.
Yeah.
On both sides. I mean,
Sure.
And I got to give the BC, the Viet Cong, the indigenous revolutionaries at South Vietnam, they were good at certain things. They were very good at booby traps.
That's what I've heard.
And
My dad told me about that.
well, I can tell you that they can booby trap
Anything. Yeah.
I mean, I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
A rock, a tennis racket.
It's like an Indiana Jones movie from beginning to end.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was interesting how our government, reacted to some of that stuff. Like, initially, one of their big traps was called a punji stick.
Yep.
A bamboo stick, and they put feces on it.
Yep.
To increase the infection. And guys would step on it. So the Americans, being as smart as we think we are, we said, well, let's put a steel plate at the bottom of your combat boots so that punji stick can't go through there. So as soon as those came out, the BC started building what we call spider traps, and they were two pieces of wood connected by tire rubber, and they would start using steel spikes, and you'd step on these things and they fold open, and there you be. They negated the whole, if they get you in the ankle, right, instead of right with the foot.
Like a bear trap almost.
Exactly.
Yeah. My uncle was paratrooper in Vietnam, and the exact same thing happened. I mean, he was discharged because the bamboo, the punji stick went through his lower leg, out his upper leg, and of course, he was done after that.
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever see the movie The Last Samurai? Okay, so it was. Like many great movies, it has elements of historical truth.
Right.
And a whole lot of artistic license taken to tell the story, right? Which made it a pretty well done movie that we were told was based on a real story. It was very loosely based on a real story, but it was about basically the transfer in Japan from feudal weapons to firearms. And they were trying to put down this rebellion of samurai, and it turns out, morally, the samurai were in the right. You know, they were trying to slow down the westernization of their country, you know what I mean? And it was very, very unethical and shady the way it was being done, but they underestimated them because they were what they called savages with bows and arrows.
Yeah.
And he's like, savages with bows and arrows whose sole occupation for the last 500 years has been warfare, you know, and we can't just throw some technology on this and expect to outthink and outmaneuver somebody, especially because this is their land. In their backyard, they're always going to know this area better than we do. And so that's where the innovation that you're talking about came from. Do you think we underestimated the fact that this was where they were from? They had what I guess in the sports they call the home field advantage. They knew the terrain better.
Oh, absolutely. No question about it.
Right.
No question about it.
Did we underestimate how much of a value that would be to them?
That's possible, Chance. I think that what ultimately happened was the American people lost
The support.
Support for the war.
Sure.
And, you know, I've been thinking about that ever since Jim contacted me a couple of weeks ago. You know, I think that was the whole reason that it ended like it did. But, you know, one of the things that I've looked into and I believe is that most of the guys that served in Vietnam, knowing what ultimately was the result, 95% of them say they do it again. And I would. I told somebody the other day that I wouldn't do it again in a million years, but I wouldn't take $1 million for the experience. Because, you know, I was so fortunate to survive. I mean, it was almost a miracle. And I thank God for preserving my life. But I think that what ultimately happened is the American people just said, look, we've had enough of this. Let's just walk away. Let's stop this. And I think that's what happened. It was unfortunate, but that was the way it was.
Do you think, because obviously I listen to a lot of people. I listen to a lot of speakers, right? I listen to a lot of podcasts. And one of the things I make a point to do is I make a point of listening to people that I don't agree with on the surface. Just to hear what, you know what I mean? To try to understand maybe where they're coming from. And one of the questions, and I was just doing this last night, I'm watching this, and I'm wondering what the balancing act is between minding our own business and not allowing that bully on the playground to push somebody around. Do you understand what I'm saying, Jimmy? Like there's a balancing act between, is this any of our business to get involved?
Yeah.
Versus, how can we not get involved? Like we're as guilty as that person by when they say that evil is what happens when good people do nothing.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So to understand, to truly try to make, because it's your best guess, right? Like you won't know till afterwards whether you did the right thing.
Exactly.
Whether we're meddling and trying to exert power, and I don't mean we as in America, I mean America now or China or Great Britain back in the, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter. I'm not talking about we as in me in this country. I mean, anybody who has the power to act that doesn't, and then to really wonder in your gut if you're doing the right thing. And I don't know if as a species we figured it out yet. I think that there are times that we should have done something and didn't, because we said, oh, that's none of my business. Or there are times that we did something and shouldn't, because it wasn't any of our business. And this is an individual responsibility too, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like, Jimmy, if you were walking down the street and you saw a child getting pulled in a van, obviously that's black and white. That's cut and dry. You're not going to say, well, this is not my business to get involved. Obviously, you get involved.
Right.
But there's certain situations where I have to wonder, do I have a role here to do something, or is my role to do nothing?
So you think Vietnam, we should have been there?
No. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have been there. What I'm saying is, are all of the times from 1783, I guess, was the official, you know what I mean? 1776 it started.
Right.
You know, so, but was it 1783 that it was official? Right. Since then, every time we have done something, should we have? And every time we didn't do something, should we have?
It's a great.
Do you understand the question?
Well, that's a great philosophical question, right? Because this outer argument, you don't know what you don't know.
Until afterwards,
right? Because to me,
hindsight's 2020.
Well, it's like the Afghanistan withdrawal.
Right.
The Afghanistan withdrawal. It was a complete wreck. I mean,
it was horrible.
It was a disaster. Every military member, 100%. I'm speaking for all of you guys out there listening. Thought it was the way that it was handled.
Yes,
getting out of there was a complete train wreck.
Like, should we have been there 20 years? I'm not sure. Should we have left in 15 minutes the way we left? No.
Right. Now there was a way to do it.
And was it? Do you think? And I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're here because, what it looks like from a layperson, because I'm the first to admit my ignorance of the behind the scenes. I don't know. I've never been a politician and I've never been a policymaker. All I know is what it looks like from the outside as a civilian.
Right.
But what you said a second ago about the influence and the power of the public opinion, it looks like the Afghanistan withdrawal was fueled by wanting to remain in the favor of the populace. Like the people were saying, no, we want you, like we want to get out. In other words, they were just succumbing to a popularity vote, which was the reason it was done so overnight and drastic and harmfully. Do you think that had a lot to do with it, the public opinion?
I don't.
Really?
I think that what you had was an incompetent president. Who made that decision despite what all the military was telling him not to do that.
Do you think that they were doing it to try to win a popularity contest, though? Or were they just being stupid?
I think it's a combination of both.
You think so?
Stupidity and the fact that they thought that perhaps they could
gain the favor of
some of the left of this country.
Okay.
So when you got back from Vietnam, of course, I only hear stories from people who have served their Vietnam. That when you got back stateside, how did you feel the support from? Or did you feel any support? Or did they just trash any soldier that was over there? Because they didn't know what the hell you just went through. They didn't know the hell the gunfights and the killings and everything. So when you got stateside, how was that?
Well, the only the statute of limitations. I know.
You're right.
I know it's run. When I got back in December of '67, I landed in California. And I was out there after I got a 20-day leave. I went home and visited my folks and everything, and had to go back to California. And I can't remember, and I was in uniform, and I can't remember whether it was San Francisco or Long Beach or somewhere. And there was a bar with, it had two sets of doors, one on the sidewalk, and then there was one, 6 feet in or something like that. And I went in this place, and there was a hippie sitting on the floor in between the two sets of doors, and with the long hair and all this. And he said, we don't allow dogs or Marines in here. So I said, this guy's just asking for it. He's just begging for it. So I just reached down and pulled him up to his bar and just went, bam. And set him right back down. Right. He never said another word. No, and I just ran and walked off. But that was the only experience. Really? The only one. Of course, I left California.
Yeah.
Shortly thereafter.
That's probably why I was the only one who left California.
Could have been. But
Hey, if you're that hippie watching this, he serves you right.
well, that guy may be dead by now because he's 80 years old. Right. I am. But I think that before I left, I was in San Diego, and I remember how poor I was and how broke I was, and I stayed at a flop house.
I love this story.
The room, you got a room, it was $2. And it had a light in it. I mean, one bulb, and that was it. It had.
Yeah.
And the bathroom and shower was down the hall. Everybody used that.
Yeah, it's a hostel, right?
Yeah. And so I'm in this slop shoot place, and there was a sidewalk and the steps up to the front door of this joint. And so I decided I'm going to go out and get some air and smoke a cigarette or something. And I'm sitting down there, and I'm about 2 steps from the sidewalk, and then the sidewalk, then you've got the gutter. And I'm sitting there, and this one-legged wino comes out of the building, and he says, why don't you go get us some beer? And I looked at this guy, and I said, I don't have any money. How am I going to buy beer?
Right.
And he said, well, if I buy it, will you go get it? And I was like, well, of course I will.
Yeah, right.
Certainly. And, and I was in uniform because, back then in San Diego, I mean, the liquor stores would sell Marine anything.
Right.
I mean, they didn't check ID at all very much. So I got a 6-pack of Schlitz Tall Boys and took them back to this guy. And so he gives me one of these beers and cracks it open, and I crack mine open, and we're sitting there drinking this beer. And it just occurred to me as I was sitting there that I'm about 6 inches from being in the gutter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that had a profound... Sure. Because here I was, damn near 20 years old, and I'm sitting with a one-legged wino in a flop house.
Yes.
Drinking Schlitz Tall Boys, and I'm almost to the gun.
Right.
And I said, you've got 13 months in Vietnam coming up, and if you get through that, you got to do something with your life.
Sure.
You know, you can't live this way.
Right.
And it had a profound effect on me, and that and the epiphany I had when I got shot at the first time, I said, you know, I can't do this.
Right.
I mean, this is not working out like I had anticipated at all.
Yeah.
And you know, the other thing, Chance, that happened in my life that changed my life like the Marine Corps did was Lynn, my wife. And
I was going to ask, where did you meet? Well, I mean, I know the story before, or
They don't. I don't know the story.
Well, I know you do, but Mama Lynn, where did you meet Mama Lynn?
I had a friend in Dallas that an older man who has 3 daughters that I went to school with, and I was sitting in his house in the living room about sometime around Christmas or January of '69, I guess it was. And he asked me, he said, well, are you dating anybody? And his youngest daughter was in there. And he said, well, are you going with anybody? I said, no. And he looked at his daughter and he said, what about that big blonde that lives across the hall from you at Texas Tech? And she said, Lynn Eldridge. And, you know, I kind of let it go. And a couple of weeks later, I called Nancy. We were all back at Tech, and I called Nancy, and I said, Nancy, see if you can get me a date with Lynn Eldridge across the hall. And she said, well, she doesn't go out on blind dates. And I said, well, just tell her it's a Coke day. We'll go have a Coke or something. And she arranged that, and I think it was a Thursday, and I went to pick Lynn up at the dorm, and all of a sudden this tall 5'10" blonde comes out wearing shorts and a Theta t-shirt and the most beautiful $1 million smile you ever see. And from then it just, you know, everything good in my life happened.
Wow.
And you know, we got married 3 years later, and we're married for 51 years and 3 days.
Wow. That's such an amazing story.
So Mama Lynn, so you and Mama Lynn, I call her Mama Lynn, so I love it, by the way. I'm pretty certain, Atticus, if you're watching, so I'm pretty certain that she loved me more than that. So I'm just saying, I'm just saying it now. But anyway, so you guys graduate Texas Tech. You guys come back to Dallas, or where do you guys go?
Went to Corsicana.
Okay, and that's where you opened up your law firm?
Yep. Yeah. Lynn was several years younger than I was, and so when we got married, I was a first-year law student, and Lynn got a degree in science because she got a Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry and biology and all that. And she was, I suppose, going to be a teacher or something, which is the last thing Lynn wanted to do. Yeah. So she said, I'm gonna go to nursing school. And so Lynn went to nursing school for 2 more years after Tech. And by that time I'd graduated, and then she graduated from nursing school about, I don't know, 3 or 4 months after I did. Okay. And he came to Corsicana, bought a house, and raised our kids there.
Wow.
So then she was a nurse in Corsicana, or did she, any of those local cities near there?
She was a nurse in Corsicana, starting there, and then she evolved into a nurse from working for Baylor. That encompassed a number of smaller towns. And then she got to be in charge of all the satellite dishes or satellite places where they had nurses and stuff in Baylor. And I guess about 20 years ago, Baylor and Presbyterian were thinking about a joint venture, which Lynn always said, it's not going to happen because you've got Baptist and Baylor, got the others at Presby. And so Lynn was at Baylor, and they said, well, look, the Presbyterian home care, health care is in a mess. You need to go there for a couple of, 6 months or whatever, and straighten it out. And by the end of a year or so, it was obvious that the merger wasn't going to happen, and she was not going to go back to Baylor. So she stayed at Presby and became head of the home health care.
Okay.
She was the only nurse, director of a section that didn't have a master's degree in nursing. So she was extraordinarily bright, and Lynn was awfully good for my soul.
Sure.
She was your balance, if you will, the rough around the edges, Jim Gill, with the Vietnam and going to college. She balanced you for sure.
Well, she did. Lynn was a wonderful woman, and she understood, without having ever been there, what it was like the time that I was in Vietnam. And I think, she saw the repercussions of it when we started going together.
Sure. Yeah.
And, if I heard a backfire, for example, right, I would duck.
Sure.
Or, I even fell on the ground one time.
Right.
Yeah. And Lynn understood.
Took that in stride.
Yeah, she did. And I had some bad nights, and Lynn would just say, look, just relax. I'm here. We're good. We're fine. You just had a bad dream.
Sure.
And, she was the rock that kept me in the right lane.
Wow.
As well as anybody could.
You know what I loved about Lynn is you and I, you could probably just go off anywhere. The Jim Gill, like, and Lynn can put you so much in check. Of course, it was phenomenal. Probably like the same way that Miriam I do. Absolutely. It changed. Lynn Gill was a magician.
Yeah.
With this. So when you decide, let me ask you this, Jim. What possessed you to decide to run for mayor of Corsicana? What did Lynn think about that when you decided to do that?
Well, you have to back up to, I was county judge first.
Okay.
And I was an assistant criminal district attorney, worked for one of my dearest friends, a guy named Pat Batchelor, who's still living and on up the years, not too good health, but doing okay. And the current county judge was a grown-up, was born and raised in Corsicana. I was not. And I just, he had sort of a special deal for his friends and stuff. And I didn't like that. If he had a friend that got a ticket or a DWI, he'll meet him in the office and they work something out and then be a loud mufflers or something. And I found that objectionable.
It is wrong. That's why you found it objectionable, because it's wrong.
Exactly. And I decided that I had a belly full of that because I was representing the state, and when he was cutting these deals and letting his buddies do whatever transpired, the only thing I could do was to run against him. And so I launched a campaign, and nobody, I mean, I'd been there 3 or 4 years in Corsicana. Nobody knew who I was. Nobody cared who I was. And nobody thought I could win, number one. And at the time, we had a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old.
Right.
And that comes into play later because Lynn quit nursing and started staying at home with the kids. Well, anyway, I'm Lynn and I and the kids, I walked all over Navarre County, beating on doors and all that. And Lynn kind of stayed in Corsicana and drugged those two little kids along with her, going door to door. And on election night, we beat his brains out. Wow. There are 34 boxes in Navarre County, and I think I won 32 of them.
Wow.
And it really was the best job that I ever had. I was the county court at law judge, criminal stuff. I was the probate judge. I handled all the middle commitments. I was the ex officio county school superintendent. I did everything that needed to be done.
I guess that's probably the cool thing about doing that in a smaller town is that if you were in a bigger town, you would not have been able to do a lot of those different versions, right? They would have had several people doing all of that stuff.
Yeah, in Navarre County, and the county at that time was probably 40,000.
Right.
Corsicana, maybe 24,000,
Yeah.
45,000. But I enjoyed it, and I did signed off on all the search warrants, all that stuff, and it was kind of interesting because a lot of times if they thought that they were really going to have a problem, they would say, "Why don't you come with us?" And I said, "Well, why would you want me there?" Well, if we had to kill this guy,
Right. That's awesome. We'd like to have you there.
we would prefer that you be there.
So let me ask you a question, because there's a lot of really I don't know if y'all have the internet.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
But there's a lot of really disgruntled people in the world, and you touched on it a second ago, why you ran. It sounds to me like that if you had seen a person doing an ethical, honorable job, you would not have felt compelled to step up and do something about it.
You're absolutely
Okay, so
absolutely.
So here's the thing. This has never not been true in human history, right? Those with the power to do whatever they feel like doing and to help whoever they feel like. The spoils system. I remember learning this in American history. Do you know what the spoils system is, Jimmy? And what he's talking about is the spoils system. It's not what you know, it's who you know.
Right.
And you have watched me in martial arts, okay? I want nothing that somebody underneath me couldn't get the same way. I'm saying this is in my bones.
Yeah.
Not only do I not want an unfair advantage, if I get to pick, I want it to go the other way. I want to work harder than your average person has to get. I don't want preferential treatment.
Yes.
Because I see what preferential treatment does to the people who spectate it. What happens, do you know what happens, Jimmy, when the people around your life that you don't know are watching you?
Right.
When they see you get a leg up because of who you know,
Right.
do you know what it does?
No, it
Crushes hope. Why should I work? Why should I try? Because there is no hope, because I'm not friends when Billy Joe bit Jim Bob, and I'll never be able to get ahead or get anything, because it's not about how hard I work and the effort that I put in. It's about who you got lucky enough to be born into knowing.
Exactly. And that's
why you did it, right?
Yeah, because, to me, preferential treatment in the justice system is not justice.
It's the opposite.
It's the opposite. And the only, he was not going to stop doing it.
Right.
I mean, he was just not going to do it. The only way to stop that was to run against it and win.
Yeah.
And that changed everything.
Yeah.
And
it sounds like people wanted it to change.
Well, I think they did. I think that the fact that I was a Marine resonated with some people. And, again, it was the best job I ever had.
So great.
But it only paid about $22,000 a year. And
the thing, you didn't do it for the money.
Well, I'm getting to that. But it really was a wonderful job. I made lots of friends with the Highway Patrol, the DEA. All those guys were friends of mine. I'd go with them if they felt like I was needed. But I simply couldn't afford it.
Sure, of course.
And, as Lynn was still at home and we didn't have that second check coming in.
Sure.
Sadly, I told him after one term, I said, look, I just can't do it. I can't live on $22,000 a year and raise my two kids and all that.
Because you were a lawyer before that.
Correct. But Chance, the problem was that being the county judge was so complex in the numbers of potential conflicts of interest. Everything from criminal cases to probate cases to veterans questions, dealing with incompetence, all this stuff. You couldn't practice law.
Right, of course not.
And so I couldn't supplement that $22,000 with some income from a law practice.
There was no way to ethically do that.
Correct. And so I just told him, I said, look, I've loved it. I've enjoyed it. I love you four commissioners and all that, but I can't afford this. And so I did talk him into granting a $5,000 a year raise to whoever succeeded me.
Okay.
And I left the courthouse after 4 years. And then out of the blue, I go home one afternoon or one early evening, and all these people are at my house. And I'm like, why are all these people? And they were the people that owned the banks and the car dealerships and all that. And I said, okay, what's up? And they said, well, we got a corrupt mayor. You need to run for mayor. I said, okay, well, how much does that pay? They said, well, that's $15 a month. So I've gone from 22 a year to $15 a month.
Yes.
So outsmarted my not so much.
Hold on a second. What is that? How much is that?
Well, it's $60 a year.
Yeah.
It's $600, about $700.
About $700 a year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. When'd you go into Cancun?
That's right. Well, that's kind of the way that happened, and I did. We had a corrupt mayor and all that, and it was, again, it was the preferential treatment that got me.
Yeah,
because think about this, and this actually happened. A friend of ours was providing information to, me or somebody. I can't remember what. And all of a sudden, a cop car pulls up beside him, and these two cops get out. This is in Corsicana. Beats the guy up, and then they haul him down to the municipal judge. Well, what jurisdiction does a municipal judge have? Very damn little, right? Except as it comes to violation of city ordinances and stuff like that. So they haul him down to the municipal judge. They say, well, he's been involved in a fight with us. In fact, we beat the hell out of him and all that. So it goes to the municipal judge. The municipal judge fines him $15 for fighting, and that's it. Well, number one, he's already pled guilty. It's double jeopardy. You can't take him to the county court.
Correct.
So what does that tell you? It says for $15, if you're on the right side, you'd go down and just beat the hell out of anybody you want.
Right.
And that just flew in my face. Well, there again, that was this kind of preferential stuff that if you're going to take some old Joe off the street because he's drunk in public and let him go, what if the banker that's out driving around, why are you going to not take him in and vice versa? But they all ought to be served by the same
Exactly.
the same judge, the same prosecutors, and they ought to be treated exactly the same.
Yes.
So good for you. Anyway, I got elected mayor, and then it was a 2-year term. I stayed 2 years, so you got to stay another.
What'd you do with that $1,400?
I don't even. I gave it to Lynn.
So funny story. So I'm what you call an honest criminal.
Okay. There you go.
Not like Michael Jackson was a smooth criminal.
Okay.
So I was an honest criminal. And what I mean by that is I will absolutely break certain laws.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I won't lie about it, and I won't make excuses.
Yeah.
For example, when I drive home to Azle every night, there was a time where part of the road was under construction.
Right.
Okay. And so the speed limit went from 55 to 40 at 11 o'clock at night with nobody on the road. I'm not driving 40 miles an hour. I understand that that's what the rules are. I get it. I 100% get it. So a state is waiting, obviously, 11 o'clock at night. A lot of people are blowing past 40 miles an hour, right? And so he pulls me over. And he says, sir, the speed limit changed for us. I go, no, I'm well aware. Which, by the way, when he makes it to my car, my dome light's on, my hands are attending to, the car's off, right? I know what to do to set him at ease.
Yeah.
And he says to me, you can't. I said, sir, I get it. 100% I get it. And if it were 6 o'clock in the afternoon and there were construction crews out here, I would have gone 40 miles. Exactly. I said, but I want to tell you something. I'm never going to drive 40 miles an hour through this zone. And you can wait here every single night and write me a ticket every single night, and you will always catch me speeding pretty here. And that's just the way it's going to be. Now, I don't have any issue with you writing me a ticket.
Right.
You totally should write me a ticket. I'm breaking the law, but I'm going to do it every single day. And he just looked at me and said, in 30 years of law enforcement, I've never heard anybody say this. He didn't write me a ticket, and he wasn't waiting there the next day. And the thing is, there are certain things that I won't do. I just won't do them, Jimmy. I'm going to jaywalk every time. Every time. I'm not going to stand on a curb waiting for digital permission to walk across the street if there are no cars there. So the thing is, though, is that I also don't bitch and complain when the consequences come due.
Right.
Because I'm like, in other words, I heard one of my mentors told me one time, you can do what you want, as long as you're willing to accept the consequence.
Yes, thunder up on this.
You know, and what you're explaining is something that has got a lot of people. So one of my dearest friends, I hadn't talked to this guy in years, and every time I tell this story, I get really wistful because I miss him. He was a good guy. He was a really good guy. He was a guy that came into my school about a decade ago. Devout Muslim. He comes in and he said, now he was educated in America, right? And he comes in and he said, listen, I wanted to take martial arts ever since I was a little boy. I've always wanted to do martial arts, but I can't bow. I can't. Like, I can bow, to Allah and to Mecca, but I cannot do this.
Yeah.
It goes against my religion. I was like, we teach Kali, and there's a Kali salute, so you just do that instead. And he and I became really good friends because the gesture doesn't matter. It's the feeling and the meaning behind the gesture that matters, right? So he and I became very dear friends, right? And he was hardcore. Like, I couldn't make eye contact with his wife. You know what I mean? Like he brought her into the school. Like, it was very, 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 he wasn't like diet or like Muslim light, but he was intensely, right?
Right.
And so over our friendship, over a few years, what he was telling me, he said, I watch how y'all complain about the injustices in this country. And he said, you have no idea what injustice is. He's like, where I grew up, he's like, the things that you call unfair here, which are unfair, the unethical stuff, he goes, but I'm from a country where there is not even a pretense of justice. Yeah. You know what I mean? If somebody just goes and pays the cops, they can throw your whole family in jail, and they don't need any evidence. Yeah. He's like, and that's the reality that I grew up in. He said, so I'm not saying that y'all shouldn't try to improve it here, but you might want to take a second and be a little grateful for what you have, because you have no idea how good you are.
Well, it's like what Jim said earlier, right? You don't know what you don't know. People want to go to war.
No, they don't.
Yeah. They have no idea.
No, they don't. Was it Jocko that said that on a pod? I think it was on the roast. He was talking about, he's like, you let the kind of stuff that I've seen start happening in your neighborhood.
No.
He's like, you would change your mind immediately.
Like, yep. Yeah. Did Atticus and I ever told you about my trash can story? Ever tell you that? Mm-hmm. So years ago, I go out of town. I'm raising my nephew at the time. He was little with us. So I had to fly back to court in Norfolk, Virginia. So I flew out there, put my trash cans out on the Tuesday. Okay? Trash day is until Wednesday. So I asked my neighbors, hey, after trash, could you put the cans up? Yeah, no problem. I come home after I get my car towed because I was in the DA's parking spot, but that's another direct talk. But dude, there were like 100 of them, Jim. Like, there's no way there's 100 DAs here. Anyway, I got my rental towed. But anyway, so I get back, and I have a certified letter in the mail from the city of Fort Worth. It says, pay us $410, or we'll see you in court, because my trash cans were out of, no warning, no nothing. So I call Atticus. So my best friend, Atticus, I'm like, Atticus, dude, I would pay you 10 times. I said, I'd pay the significant. I said, this is when he was like the law firm down in downtown Boulder. If we go down, Bailey and Gallon. Yeah. So I was like, dude. He was like, all right. He goes, just send me the information. We'll take care of it. I said, okay. So I missed the pay. I missed the date, right? So whatever. Like Atticus said, don't worry about it. Okay, I'm not like, dude. I'm going to get. Like, I was going to throw him in jail. Like all these fines, whatever. Dude, I'm not in trouble with the law. So I get a court date. So I show up, court date. It's not Atticus. It's somebody else's law firm. But Atticus had basically said, that's my VIP. I treat him like VIP. I was like, okay. So go there, not knowing anything. And so the lady goes and talks to the DA, the city, whatever city DA, trying to get it dropped. They're not dropping it. So I was like, so you walk out, and I'm like, what's going on? And she goes, well, you got another court date. So we have to do another court date. I'm like, what? So another court, like a month or so later, like, I'm like, what's up with this $410 fine that I would? So Atticus now shows up. So it's Atticus. And Atticus, I mean, he's telling me, like, you sit in there. Okay. So I'm chewing gum and whatever, like the bailiff or whatever, see me chewing gum, tells me to, I was like, okay. I'm like, dude, listen, not my plan. You know, I'm air traffic. That's my job. This is not my playground. I don't know anything.
You can't chew gum?
Yeah, not apparently in the court. I don't know. I have to ask Jim here. I'm like, apparently I was just sitting there just chewing gum. And so I throw it away. When Atticus walks out or walks again and says, you know, I was like, well, okay, so I'm following, follow me. So I followed. He goes, the DA, they're not going to drop it. I'm like, well, what do we do? He goes, we'll go to jury trial. I was like, we're going to trial? And so I was like, Atticus, I'm like, dude, you guys are good. I'm like, you haven't charged me anything, man. And I'm like, jury trial? He goes, I'll do it. He goes, I will rig this shit. He goes, first of all, and he's telling me like all the stuff, like they don't have any trash can numbers on it. They don't have how they stood up. I'm like, dude, I can't waste your time. You guys are already doing it. I said, well, what are they offering? What's the DA offered? A trash can course. I had to attend a trash can course in order for them to drop the $410. And Atticus said for every one person, like, we have to fight, 10 people pay that much. And that's the thing. That's right there. I was like, no warning, no nothing, certified letter. I was like, and then of course other stuff that Miriam and Mama Lady used to bust our tails. Like,
well, and this
legal system is your playground.
And this is why I was a criminal. Is that I've heard this story before. Yeah, and I heard that story, and I'm like, none of that would have ever happened. I would have just thrown it in the trash, and they probably would have come and got me.
Yeah. But,
you know?
Like, I've never been in trouble with that.
And then what I would have done is I would have sweet-talked the cop that came to get me and got him on my side. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, Atticus is just, sure. Me anyway with law stuff.
We have to, I'm going to tell this young man the same thing that I told Miguel. Would you be willing to come back on and do this again? I loved having you on the podcast.
I could possibly
not anytime soon.
No, I didn't just. It took me 2 hours and 15 minutes to get here.
You know what? We'll come to him.
We'll go down to the ranch. We'll go down to your ranch.
Well, I mean, we could do that, but yeah, I would
love to be able to get to know you more. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Well, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So as we wrap this up, I just want you. So as many our system is starting to change now. New politics and stuff in the military is starting to grow. Now I think the Army had this best month ever in December. Yeah, right. There's some young men who I'm mentoring who are probably going to watch this and are thinking about the military. What would you advise? Like, you went from drinking with the one-legged wino, to
he'd already made the decision to join the military. Drinking with but he was between boot and Vietnam.
Exactly. So you went from, in my opinion, rags to riches kind of story. These young men and ladies that are deciding to join the military. What would you tell them?
Well, I think the military, in my case, was a pivotal point in my life. And, I was very much undisciplined as a young man. And I got a real education in the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps is not for everybody, but it fit me and made me a better person. And any success that I've had in my life, I credit to the United States Marine Corps, the Tech Law School, and Lynn Eldridge Gill. Wow. They were the best three things that ever happened to me.
Wow. Well, I have nothing but love for you, Jim, and your family. And
I've been fortunate for sure.
And I've learned a lot from you because as we share this podcast a lot, you are who you hang out with. Yep. So I hang out with you and Atticus and just learn from all you guys. So I appreciate you. Thank you again for your service. Thanks for Thanks for being on the podcast.
2.5 hours you drove up and down. That's amazing.
Yeah,
The traffic was terrible. There was a wreck on 45. There was a wreck on 20. I mean, it was just a big.
That's how much she loves me, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I would have done this for anybody.
I know, and I do appreciate that. And so, and I know that Mama Lynn has passed on the last couple of years. I just want you to know that even though she said you, if you will, for 51 years, she was a bright, shining star that I absolutely are. And I appreciate you guys welcoming me into your family, because what I didn't share, or what I was going to share offline, is Atticus. He has a law firm. If you guys need something, criminal defense lawyer, Atticus Gill. Every time I go hang out with him, and listen, I don't really change my attire. Every time I go in there, Steven and his people are like, "Hey, you have a client here." Yeah, it's like all the time. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm like Atticus Gill. That's not a client.
So on that, I am that friend too. Because this is what I wear, and I wear funny shirts and cut off sweats, and I have no intention of changing that.
But you, like Jim Gill, by the way, there's a lot of similarities, because you show a lot of integrity. You help a lot of people. And you did, even though you didn't serve, you have such a heart for.
You know why?
And military.
Because I got a lot of red in my lunchroom. That's one of the best lines from the first Avengers movies. Is you know some of my story, right? But nobody knows all of my story but me. And the thing is that I have a lot of selfish decisions in my life. Obviously from a younger time, that the only way I can rectify that is by service. It's the only way that I can actually, go back and make up for a lot of the stupid things I did when I was young, is being a man of honor and service and integrity, now that I'm not like that anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's a selfish reason. I think that it's that we are given a vehicle in this life to make up for mistakes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's funny because I had one of my many mentors was talking about a thing you should do for your martial arts school, and he said you should share your origin story. And he said, and when you think I mean all your black belts and trophies and titles, he goes, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, what did this do for you to maybe turn you away or bring you back from a bad place? Like that origin story. So Jimmy, I'm thinking about how much of my story I actually am going to share, because apparently that will help people.
It will absolutely help these. Just like having Jim on the podcast.
Yeah, but I'm an oversharing person too, so I need help in keeping that kind of PG down.
Well, Chance, I grew up. I was born in '46, right after World War II. As a little kid, there were lots of veterans around. I mean, these were guys that had been in the Pacific, had been in the European theater. And, I marveled at the fact as a little kid that these guys had been fighting this war for 4 years. And, as I got older, it occurred to me that, this country had given me so much in just being born here and living here, right, and having parents like I have, and all this. It was the very least that I could do to give some time back to my country. And, all the guys that I served with in Vietnam will tell you, they didn't necessarily want to be there. They were ordered to be there, just like I was. And I went there because my country said, we need you to go here and stop these people and stop this, business of going communist all the way to Vietnam and Thailand and all of the domino provisions and all that stuff. But yeah, it affected me, and I thought, why not? I remember before I left for the Marine Corps, my mother said, why you? And I said, well, why not?
I don't me.
If not me, who? Who's going to take my place?
Exactly.
Who's going to go and risk their life and possibly lose it for me?
Yeah.
Why should they be called on to do that?
Right.
So, to me, it was a no-brainer.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Next time, we're going to
We'll drive down to the range.
drive down the range.
Thank you so much,
Jeff.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Yeah.
Thanks for your service,
Yes.
friend. Hey, listen, guys, go like, subscribe, and this guy's amazing. Love you guys.